What's going on YouTube? Mike here with I Heart Knives, and in this video we're going to be doing some strop cleaning, and specifically we're going to be cleaning water-based compounds. The two methods I'm going to be using are alcohol and saddle soap. I primarily use isopropyl alcohol for cleaning. People say that you can use like vegetable oil or olive oil. That's usually done with wax-based compounds, so like traditional chromium oxide would be good with that. But for water-based compounds, I like to use alcohol. I find that it cleans really quickly, it dries really quickly, it's really effective, and it'll also work with wax-based compounds. The nice thing about oil is it'll kind of recondition the leather at the same time. Alcohol will dry the leather out quite a bit. You can apply oil to the leather after. The only downfall to that is you need to let the leather cure sort of before you apply water-based compounds to it. You have to let the oil dry out enough, because otherwise it'll just repel the water. So I mean, if you live in like a warm sunny place, then you can let the leather sit out in the sun for a little while, but I live in the Northeast, so you know that's not really an option. But what I would do is use a hair dryer to warm the leather up, put the oil on. I use neat's foot oil, 100% neat's foot oil, and then you know, let the oil penetrate, and I'd probably give it about 5 to 7 days to dry out. And I'd put it in my basement, since it's really dry in my basement, and just let it sit there. The second method with saddle soap, I didn't know how it was going to work because I had never done it before, but I wanted to give it a try just because saddle soap it's a cleaner and it conditions the leather at the same time, so it'll leave it a little bit more supple. So I figured, you know, maybe it would clean the leather out and I'd still be able to use compound after without worrying, you know, that I'm drying the leather out too much. So that's the primary downfall of the alcohol, is that it does dry it out a lot. But for a strop, it's not really that big of a deal. The benefit to it being on the drier side is it'll be more stiff. You'll lose a little bit of pliability, which can actually be a benefit, because the more pliable it is, the more tendency you have to add convexity to your edge, so your apex will get a little bit more rounded. Being that the leather will be more stiff, you know, I'd say it's probably more beneficial to keeping a triangular apex. So alcohol worked really well, cleaned up really nicely, and I just set the leather aside to dry. It dried out in about an hour. I'd say it was completely dry. It was probably about 15 minutes that it was mostly dry. You can actually see it drying as I'm using the saddle soap on the other strop. You can see it drying in real time, but it wasn't dry enough that I would apply compound to it. I wanted to really make sure it was dry, so I just left it overnight and applied compound the next day. And I'll have a part 2 video of applying compounds that I'll post it at about the same time as this video going up. So first I just wet the leather with the saddle soap, and you know, just kept working it in. I didn't use a real lot. It looks like I dipped the rag or my finger in the saddle soap often, but there's actually a little bit, there's like a pool of water in the saddle soap jar, so it's mostly water that I'm putting on with just a very little bit of soap. It did an okay cleaning, but the results are kind of skewed just because that strop was not really dirty to begin with, and the piece of leather had a really thick vein that ran through it, so you can see that there are like dark black lines in the middle, and I ended up replacing that piece because it just wasn't a good piece of leather. I wasn't able to get use out of the whole piece. I was only stropping in the middle where that vein was, because that was the highest point. So long story short, I ended up scrapping that piece later on, but I did a second round of cleaning with a kangaroo strop, and I do half and half. I'll clean half with saddle soap, and then I'll clean the other half with alcohol on the kangaroo strop. I did about 2/3 of it with saddle soap, and then I went back and did the top half with alcohol after. And the saddle soap worked better on the kangaroo, I think, because it's a thinner strop, and because it was so dirty. You know, just water probably would have taken a lot of the compound off, but the saddle soap did do a pretty good job. Wasn't amazing, but a good job. The only thing that water and saddle soap will do is it'll stain the leather a little bit, so it will give it a darker look, whereas the alcohol won't darken it. It'll stay its natural color. Maybe I would say like maybe 10% darker, but the saddle soap and water will be like, you know, 2 to 3 shades darker, so it's pretty significant. Saddle soap is a little bit will make your leather a little bit lighter than oiling. Oiling will make it the darkest. It'll be, you know, significantly darker when you oil leather. But the kangaroo leather cleaned up nicely. This strop is probably about 2 years old, and the piece of leather is probably about a year old, maybe a little bit more than that. So now you'll see the alcohol cleaning, and the alcohol cleaning was significantly more effective in my opinion, just because it was so quick and easy, and it felt like it was more uniform, like it really removed the compound more evenly. The saddle soap, I just don't feel like it was as effective. It did work, but I think the alcohol worked better. I just continue to clean the other half with the alcohol, and I do brush the leather with the horsehair brush just to clean any paper towel fibers out of the leather. These straps had pretty tight pores to them, so there wasn't a lot of debris that got into the pores of the leather, so that wasn't really a concern at all. And then just blot the leather to get most of the debris out, and then toward the end you can kind of lightly scrub the leather with paper towel. You don't want to like force the paper towel into the leather, but you do want to make sure that you get into the pores and clean them out good. If you just do like surface level cleaning, then your cleaning won't be as effective. Side note that it is possible that it could take like 2 cleanings in some cases, depending how dirty your strop is. If you have a wax-based strop, I'd suggest taking like a credit card and scraping the residue of the wax off first, and then using the alcohol to clean it. Just get the majority of the wax off first. But you can see the alcohol did a much better job cleaning. But the next day, you can see how it dried out so much more. And saddle soap did a good job, it just left it much darker, but you can see most of the gray is gone. And then I do have a scrap piece of leather that I'm going to replace my original 3 micron strop. I'm going to replace that with a new piece, and that'll be in the next video. I got a lot of inquiry about cleaning strops, and hopefully this helps a lot of you guys who have my strops or don't have my strops but have similar strops that that this cleaning will work for. So again, I hope you enjoyed it. Please hit the like and subscribe buttons, hit the bell to get notifications when I post videos. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Later.